Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Awaken to Your Soul Path. I am your host, Barbara, and today I am joined by the wonderful Jenny Calcoen, and we are going to be talking about how to navigate an inner earthquake. And I've been looking forward to this talk because I know what it means. And it's a very visual thing to say, an inner earthquake. So it will get lots of images in people's minds, but it's still mysterious enough for people to think, what exactly does it mean? So I've been looking forward to diving into this topic, and I'm very happy that you're joining me here today to talk about this, Jenny. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. It's going to be fun.
Yes, right. It is going to be fun because I would love to hear what your definition is of an inner earthquake. But for
Mhm.
me, it's sort of when your internal world rocks and shakes and everything's sort of upside down. And I've had many of those moments in my
Okay.
life, being a 6'3" profile in human design.
Mhm.
So I would love to hear, how did you come up with inner earthquake, and what does it mean to you?
Yeah, so the way I define inner earthquake is literally that. It's a major life event that happens that causes literally your world to turn upside down. That causes the inner earthquake. So it could be, a divorce or a disease or an intentional or unintentional job change. It could be menopause, whatever the circumstances are that just make you go, I don't even know who I am in this moment. If I
Mm.
am no longer fill in the blank, then
Yes,
who am I?
yes,
So that's the inner earthquake. And how I came to it is I used to try and describe all the different circumstances. And then I realized, well, I don't need to describe the external circumstances. It's really what it causes on the inside. And living in California, um, inner earthquake came to mind. So
yes.
yeah, that's
Yeah, and it
how that came about.
describes perfectly how I felt because in 2010, I both lost my job after being in a severe or ending up in a severe burnout prior
Yeah.
to that. And then also my relationship of 7 years unexpectedly ended, making me lose his family, who had become my family because I was not in
Mhm.
contact with my own family. I lost my house, my safe haven. I lost most of our friends because most of our friends were his family and he made them choose. So it felt like I lost everything. And it was a very scary time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the time between no longer and not yet, and you're sort of suspended in time. You're not quite sure what will happen. That can be really scary. It can be terrifying to people.
Yes,
And it takes a while before you see that it's also really exciting. There's exciting possibilities ahead.
yes.
Um, you know, but that's not always easy to get to that point, and sometimes you
No,
need a little bit of hand holding. So,
exactly.
yeah, that's where someone like me comes in, for
Yeah.
example. Yeah,
I love that you're doing that because I could have
yeah,
used someone like that, because it
yeah,
starts with a lot of confusion and a lot of emotions. I'm an emotional authority in human design, so that means that my response to any big life event is a storm of emotions. And that
yeah.
was happening. They literally had to give me sedatives because I couldn't stop crying. I had been crying for 2 days and 2 nights straight, and they took me to the doctor
Yeah.
because I literally couldn't stop. It was really an emotional storm. And then I was asked to leave my house or for
Yeah.
7 years. By the end of the week, no clue where you were going to be ending up, and no job anymore, and no family. His family was really big and had to sort of also embraced me. And I'm very, very fortunate that his family said, well, she's our daughter too, and she's
Mhm.
a family member now now too, and you might not want to talk to her, but we still want to be talking to her. So they didn't drop me, but it was a very emotional, very scary time. And there was definitely no clarity. There was only response, reaction, overwhelm, drowning, uncertainty, confusion, anger every now and then, deep grief. So, really, an emotional storm. And when I came out of that a little bit, I discovered that I didn't really know who I was anymore. I had
Yeah.
forgotten what my hobbies were, what I liked to do for fun. And I had discovered that I sort of had adjusted my life to accommodate his.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, what you're describing is literally an existential crisis, right? So,
Yes.
my clients say things like, the rug was pulled from underneath me.
Yeah.
A client who was married for 18 years said, um, I was so used to being part of the we that I don't even remember who me is. I have clients who say, I literally don't know what my favorite color is. I don't know who I am.
Yeah.
So it's that profound, right? It's literally a change in identity. So who am I if I'm no longer a wife, a daughter-in-law, a cousin,
Partner.
like who, right? Like
Yeah.
who am I then? I've tied up my entire identity in this state.
Mhm.
And then of course the reason that we do that is because we live in a society that tells us, well, you have no inherent value. Your only value is attached to what you do and what you achieve in life. So no
Yes.
wonder that people identify with jobs and then they lose their jobs or they retire and they literally don't know who they are anymore.
No,
Um,
no, especially, and I wholeheartedly agree. I think that that's one of the biggest problems, especially with men who retire, and why a lot of
yeah,
men die not long after retirement because their whole world has disappeared, and everything that made them important and made life worthwhile has
yeah.
disappeared. And it's earth shocking when you go through something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the statistics tell us that on average, by the time we women reach midlife, we've gone on average through about five of these major life events.
That
And
sounds about right.
right, that's exactly, women will tell me like, oh, I have had more, right?
Yeah,
Because
probably.
we've all had these events happen. And
Hmm.
it's not so much the fact that they happen because life happens, that's
Yes.
part of life. It's that we mostly spend time living in our heads,
Hmm.
not at all in our bodies. And when something major like this happens, we are just propelled into the present moment, here and now. And we are not used to feeling all of our feelings because we
Hmm.
we sort of dissociate out of our bodies. So all of a sudden we're confronted with everything all at once, and it literally feels like you are dying.
Yeah.
And hence the existential crisis, because a part of you or a version of you is actually dying, and that's
Yes.
the part that you need to let go in order to move on.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
and of course this is true for everybody, but what I've
Mm,
seen for people who identify as a highly sensitive person, an
mm,
empathic person, often also introverted people, so people who are in general a little bit different and more sensitive than most other people in the world, they have been influenced by society's expectations and paradigms. And what I see is that they've often sort of created multiple personas. I call them
mm.
masks. So
Yeah.
I had a version of me for when I was with my friends. I had a version of me for when I was with my coworkers. I had a version of me for when I was with my parents. I had a version of me for when I was with my boyfriend. So you have sort of all of these identities, and it comes from the fact that we have been made to feel like we are not okay the way we are, and that we need to change in order to fit in, have friends, have love, have a good job, make promotions, whatever. And that means that a big part of your identity is directly tied into your job, your partner, your friends.
Yeah.
And if that then disappears, one or all of them, then that cannot be anything other than a huge impact, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And I very much relate to that, of course. I mean, of course, I do the work that I do because I have, had my own experiences in life.
Yeah.
Um, and the way I relate to it as well is I was in corporate for 26 years. And, part of who I became, who my persona became at work was part compensation for, I grew up in a small town in the middle of nowhere, Belgium. Big careers were not really in my future. So part of me was trying to compensate for a story that told me I am not good enough.
Hmm.
uh, Part of it was also that I was in industries that were male dominated. And so I had to appear a certain way because, as a woman trying to make it in those sort of male environments, that wasn't easy. So my persona consisted of all of these. I have to appear confident and I have to do this and I have to appear like this. And otherwise, I will seem vulnerable and I will be taken out, right? That was, it's sort of survival of the fittest.
Yes.
Um, and now when I look at my life now, there is only one version of me. There is no, okay, so maybe I will edit myself from time to time. Maybe if you're around people that don't like cursing or, I'm not saying I don't pay attention because I don't want people's filters, around me to influence how we connect.
Hmm.
But there's only one version of me. I
Hmm.
don't try to appear what I am not. I am very comfortable with myself and confident in myself, confident in what I'm doing. I don't need to appear any different. And anybody that has a problem with this, what you see is what you get is, well, then we're not, I wish you well, and we're not meant to be friends or work together or,
Yes.
collaborate. It's that
Yeah.
simple.
I recognize what you're saying. There's only one version of me, and there has been only one version of me for quite some time. And
Mhm,
I used to sort of temper myself in situations like you were describing, but I've now let go of that one as well. I am
mhm,
just who I am now. I say what I say, and I come from a place of love. And if you resonate with
mhm.
that, great. If you don't resonate with that, then also great. I have
Yeah.
reached a place where I think I am done dimming my light. I am done making myself smaller so that other people feel more comfortable. It has not brought me anything pleasurable, enjoyable, happy, or good. And I feel it's time to just be me.
Mhm,
Regardless of where that ends up. And what I am experiencing is a lot more inner peace and a lot more freedom.
mm. Yeah, I think that's a gift too of being in midlife. Um, there are
Maybe.
just I feel better than I've ever felt. I will turn 53 this year. I have no problem saying my age. There are people who find it troublesome to say their age. And I think, no, I have earned these wrinkles, right? Like I am proud to be
A badge of
53 and
honor.
it's only getting better. I mean, I
Yes.
wouldn't want to be 20 and 30 again. It's only getting better. So I think that's the gift. That's the gift of midlife where we go, you know what? It really isn't a dress rehearsal. Like this is it. And I am going to live my life for me, not by somebody else's standards. It's
Exactly.
very freeing and liberating. So I highly
Exactly.
recommend it.
Yes. And so we've talked a little bit about the beginning of the inner
Mhm,
earthquake and the things that can lead up to experiencing an inner earthquake and what it feels like and what's happening. We've also talked about possible end results when we
mhm,
overcome, but we
mhm,
haven't really explored how to navigate one when you're in it.
mhm.
So, what are some of the things that you do or have discovered that help people to navigate an emotionally charged end of your existence feeling type of event?
Yeah, so I really feel that it is important to get help in those moments. From my own experience, I know that when I've gone through really big, um, a coming together of all sorts of different situations, all at once, different circumstances. I had lovely friends around me, well-meaning, and they had advice and they had opinions. And sometimes that was just overwhelming. I was already stressed out about the future. I was already like, well, I'm not sure what's going to happen. Um, and sometimes that just wasn't helpful to speak to people who knew me and who I knew and who I loved. And so I wish I had had someone around like me in those moments. But I would say, whether you get some help from out of therapy, a therapist to speak with, it's really, really important that you acknowledge and that you go through the grieving stage and grieving doesn't have a good name, right, in our
Mhm.
society, because again, like it's you're not being productive, right, if you're grieving. Um, and it is just absolutely essential. It's essential to look at what are you letting go of? Like, how can you even let go of it if you don't even know what it is that you're letting go of? But
Mhm.
so it is an identity. It might be an identity as a spouse, a partner, a C-suite executive position, whatever it is, it's just really, really important because until you do that, you can't actually move on. And
No.
so I encounter people who sometimes stay stuck in that place and they don't really know what they have to let go of. They're very, very impatient and they just want to start doing the next thing. And really they're probably not even ready yet. Like you're only ready to come out of the inner earthquake when you're healed. You've
Mhm.
you've healed that part. You've let go of a part of yourself and now you're looking at what's next. And
Mhm.
you're feeling more excitement than fear around what's next.
Yes, you're absolutely right, and thank you for sharing that. I have indeed discovered that for most people, they say they want to change, but they don't take the actions that are necessary in order to change. And more often than not, something like an inner quake has to happen with that much
Yeah,
severity to force the change that needs to happen. Because if there wasn't a pressing thing like that happening,
that's
we
right.
tend to stay stuck in the patterns that are familiar, not the
Yeah,
patterns that are making us happy. We might acknowledge that we're unhappy and that it's not working, but still, most of us choose this familiar over the unfamiliar. And this earthquake event, this inner earthquake event, is the thing that sort of catapults us into change the hard
yeah.
way. And of course, people can read books and maybe register for courses or seminars or follow people, and they will learn things there and they will also start changing. But it's a bit like going to the gym and doing it by
Mm,
yourself, and
mm,
you will see some results, maybe not the results you want, maybe the results you want, maybe quick, maybe slow, you just don't really know. And maybe no results at all because you're doing the wrong
mhm,
thing, keeping you stuck where you are. While when you invest in a personal trainer, which would be a mentor, a coach, a guide, however you want to call the person that is there to help you move through these layers, holds up a loving mirror to reflect back the things
Mhm.
that you need to be seeing, that also points out the blind spots within yourself that you just don't see, blind spots,
Mhm.
with the intention of guiding you along your path and helping you heal and let go and transform, so that sort of like a phoenix, right? You die,
Mhm.
but then you can arise out of the ashes as a better, more beautiful version of yourself.
Mhm. Yeah, and to go back to the beginning of what you were saying, right? It's baked into our DNA, of course. Like we don't descend from the people who said, "Oh, there's a growling noise in that cave. Let me go and investigate it," right? We descend from the people who didn't do that. So by nature, we are afraid of change. And by nature, we want to control our circumstances, because if we control our circumstances, then we can be guaranteed, we think, we tell ourselves this fable, we think that we can control, oh, I can't fall apart because, I have an appointment in an hour, so I can't fall apart. My family is depending on me. And so what we do when we buy books and we say we want to change our lives, and we say, well, I'll just start with a book, is we're trying to control that process, because the language that you and I are using of, like, the death of ourselves and the phoenix rising, and it's all very cataclysmic language, right? It sort of tells people, like, gosh, something terrible is going to happen, and
Mhm.
nobody wants that to happen, not if you can control it. And so that is how we go along in life. Things might not be exactly right, but it's like, it's okay, it's
Mhm.
good enough. And
Mhm.
we don't make changes until something really, really big happens. And then we are forced into the
Yes.
current circumstances, and now you have to deal with it. And
Yes.
there's only one way to go, and it's through it.
Yes.
And it's terrifying when you're standing in front of that.
Yes. Exactly.
So, yeah.
And it's even more terrifying when you have to navigate it by yourself. So when you
Yeah.
find someone that is in the position of helping you with it, with going through these things, um, investigate that person,
Yeah.
listen to how they speak, what they talk about, if the energy resonates, and find someone that you feel comfortable with, that makes you feel inspired, that makes you feel capable, that makes you feel like you can get through it, and then start working with someone like that for the inspiration, for the wisdom, for the guidance, for the love, for the healing, for whatever it is that you need to navigate this quake, to come out of it on the other side. And then looking back at it, and because that's where I am, and you're probably too, if I look back on things, then I think they were painful as hell, but I can now also see that they were necessary to get me where I am
Mhm.
now. I couldn't when I was in front of it, but now afterwards I can see why it needed to happen, and I can also see that it was in my best interest.
Yeah. Yeah, that is, there's so many gifts on the other side of it, but you don't even believe that when you're going through it.
No.
You have a hard time even believing that you'll ever be okay, that you'll ever be happy, that you'll ever laugh again, that you'll ever love again sometimes, that you'll ever trust again,
Yes.
right? When things come out of left field, like, for example, you got fired from a job, or it takes a while to build yourself up again. And I would say that the big secret is everything that you need is already inside of you, and you simply
Exactly.
need to reconnect with yourself. You need to
Exactly.
learn to trust yourself again,
Yes.
because until you do that, you won't heal that relationship with yourself, because that is what needs to heal. It's not your relationship with the outside world, it's your relationship with yourself,
Hmm.
just coming home to yourself, reconnecting, however you refer to it.
Yes.
And so that's the beautiful journey that you can go on.
That's
And
actually
there's
the
a
name
lot
of my
of
program.
joy. Right, there you go. Yeah. So there's a
Coming
lot
home
of
to
joy
yourself.
and excitement
Yes.
and vibrancy and fulfillment on the other side of that.
Yes. And it is very difficult to see it when you're on the cusp or in the middle of everything shitty that's happening or
Yeah.
crumbling. And it's very, very scary. And that's why a big part of the why behind my channel and why we are talking about topics like this, because when I was going through this, there was nobody talked about these
Yeah.
things or that offered guidance. And so I want people to know that they're not alone. So if you are going through something like this and you're watching and listening to this episode today, I would love it if you could just let yourself be heard, even if it's just leaving an emoji, or if you're brave, sharing a bit or a part or of your story, so that other people out there see they're not the only ones going through these things. It's very important to know you're not alone. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and it will be worth it, even when you cannot see it at the start of it, where you probably are. And it's sometimes it saddens me to see that people need to be hurt this much in order to let go of things that were not theirs to begin with.
Yeah, I have stories like that too. I was in a marriage for 10 years, and that was in my 20s, and I very much felt my life was very much about, is this it? And there wasn't anything particularly wrong. I was married to a good person. There was nothing wrong with him. And I just thought, is this it? And in your 20s, that, it makes me sad to think about that person now. And so I didn't do anything until I was diagnosed with cervical cancer. And that was my big wake up moment. And
Hmm.
I thought, if there is, let's say these are the last 6 months of my life, is
Hmm.
this the life that I want to be living? And the answer was no. And
No.
so I announced to my husband, who was completely taken by surprise. I
Hmm.
announced to my husband that I wanted a divorce. I got healthy, I got a divorce, I changed jobs, I changed countries, and I started dating the man who's, the love of my life, who I've been married to for 22 years now. So in those moments, all I knew was I don't want this, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I know that I don't want this. And sometimes that's the biggest indicator of, I'm not sure what the problem is. I'm not sure what's wrong or what's going on, but I know that I don't want this.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
that's a good indicator
Yeah,
that something is going on that you might want to start looking
yeah.
at.
Yeah, a lot of my clients also tell me I'm so sick and tired of always feeling sick and tired, or
Yeah,
I know this is not it. I have no clue what it is, what should be
yeah,
next, but I know this is not it. Or
yeah.
what I also see is a lot of guilt and shame around.
Mhm.
I should be happy. I have a good job. It's not making me happy, but it's a good job. It pays the bills, and I sort of like what I'm doing. I'm not so much my coworkers in the company. I
Yeah,
have a partner. We have a nice house. We have a dog. So, I have everything that most people would want. And
yeah.
it's I'm missing something. And they
Hmm.
feel shame about that, admitting that their life is not what they want, while for a lot of people it sounds perfect and a life to desire.
Yeah, and that's the key, right? Have you noticed that guilt and shame is really about other people not being okay with you? And
Yes.
and we let that influence ourselves because again, we were, you know, in baked into our DNA is tribe and community. And so we don't want to be expelled by the community, which
Yeah.
translates today as they're not going to like me. And if they like me, I might get expelled from the community.
Yeah.
So unless you've robbed the bank or unless you yell at someone and you think, oh gosh, that doesn't feel good and that's not the person I want to be, guilt and shame have no place in your life, because it's really all about other people's expectations for
Yes.
you. I am not happy, but I should be happy because other people tell me I should be happy.
Hmm.
Yes, but I am not happy, right?
Yeah.
So that's the indicator. It's not out there, it's not
Yes.
other people. It's right here, and it's you.
Yeah, that circles back to what we've been talking about before, that we need to trust ourselves. Most
Yeah.
people have gone so far away from knowing themselves, trusting
Yeah.
their intuition, even connecting with their intuition, feeling what it feels like, knowing that it's there, for a variety of reasons. And that often leads to burnout because they're also no longer connected to their body. They're not seeing the signals, not recognizing the signals when they're happening, not knowing that they should be taking action. And I think it's a modern day problem for a lot of people, and it needs to change.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I have hope because we may live in within systems, right? We live within capitalist systems and patriarchal systems, and those systems are not flexible.
No.
They are not really made for human beings. But I have high hope in that people people are the ones that make changes. We are the ones that make changes. And when I look around me and I see people, communities who care for each other, who are kind to one another, who help each other out, that is where the change will come from, right? And it starts with you.
Yes.
It's literally as simple as that. What is my sphere of influence? What can I do today to make the world a little bit better?
Yeah.
And so I have high hopes that we can make big changes, because once we people decide that we want to make changes, we can make changes.
Mhm. Yes. But the key is indeed looking within while most people look without. They try to
Yeah,
find the answers outside of themselves, another healing
that's right.
modality, another healer, another coach who only teaches methods, affirmations, visualization, meditation. And don't get me wrong, all of those things are great. But in the end, they are not going to solve the issues that you're facing when you do not look inside yourself and you do not learn how to get to know your own user manual, as I call it, really well,
Yeah,
and how the world works for you, and then be proud of it, embrace it, be
that's right.
unapologetically you.
That's right, because there's nothing wrong with you and you are not broken, right? I cannot say that enough. There
No.
is nothing wrong with you. You are not broken. You may have lost your way for a little bit, and you might need someone to hold your hand for a little bit and walk next to you while you're on this journey. But you've got everything that you need already, and you just need to be reminded where it is, you know?
Even when everybody keeps telling you that you are the problem and that you need to change, because I've been in situations like that, it still doesn't mean that you are broken or there's something wrong with you. It just means that you are surrounded by people who cannot see the true beauty that is you. And they are usually dealing with their own things that they're projecting on you. So you need
That's right.
to be in a different crowd, or get to know different people. And a lot of people tell me, yeah, but if I start to change, if I start to look within myself, if I start to work on myself, then I'll be alone. Everybody will leave me. Nobody will want to be in my life. And that could happen. I'm not sugarcoating it. If you have been around the wrong types of people for all of your life and have called them friends when they're more parasite and instead of friend, then yes, you will start losing them when you start to change, because you are no longer the one that does everything for them and comes whenever they back and call and bends over backwards to please everybody. And they would want you to, and they will not accept that you're no longer doing that. So in some cases it does mean that, but the more you become who you always were but have lost sight of, so your real self, then you start to attract the people that love you for you, the people that see you for you, and you get a whole new crowd of people, friends, and like you, the love of your life that is all of a sudden the person that you've been wanting to complete you for a long time probably, and hadn't found before.
Yeah, and I would be, I mean, first of all, those you know, the fears that we have of like, and nobody's going to want me, nobody's going to be around me. That's of course stories we tell ourselves because that's simply not true. And I've never seen that happen with any of my clients that all of a sudden they lost everybody. And personally, I would be more concerned if I lived my life out of alignment with my own values
Yes.
than living a life out of alignment with somebody else's values. That's none of my business.
No.
My only task is to live, am I in integrity with myself? That is my only task. And I know when I do that, and I pursue that on a day-to-day basis, even a minute-to-minute basis, when I do that, the world is fine, and I will attract people who are attracted to me in integrity with myself, right? To the real
Exactly.
me, like you say, the when I remember who I was before people started putting labels on me.
Exactly.
Um,
Yes.
yeah.
Oh,
So
that
you
was
will, I don't think you ever walk this path alone when you are being true to yourself. That
No,
it's
but
not,
sometimes
that's a
it can feel
story.
that way, and you can be judged by a lot of people, and people can disappear from your life, and then that of course triggers that fear. But that's partly why, or another big why it's so important to have a mentor or guide or someone who helps you along this journey, because then you never walk it alone, and they can
That's
explain
right.
these types of things to you, and show you maybe different people to connect with, or that it's okay. Because sometimes, especially when there's a lot that needs to happen within yourself, a lot of shadows that needs to be exposed, and a lot of healing that might be done because you've had a life of trauma, for instance, then it's also really nice to have that period by yourself where you don't have to take anybody into consideration, and where you can just be who you are and let out what needs to be let out, and do whatever you need to do without somebody having an opinion about it, or trying to shove you back into your box or whatever. So sometimes it can also be really therapeutic and really good to have that you time period where you just really go within and, yeah, organize and clean and clear and order and become you.
Yeah. And yeah, and again, so that is very necessary. And also when you are again in integrity with yourself and you are out in the world, maybe doing things that you're doing simply because they bring you joy, you're going to meet other people who are doing those things because it brings them joy. So you will already have things in common. I mean, I find it literally, it's impossible to be out in the world, living your truth, living your life, and not meet people that you will end up being friends with.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, all
so,
my clients have become my friends.
right.
It's a beautiful
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yes. Oh, I've absolutely loved our talk. And I can imagine that you out there have also loved our talk. And if you have, it would be amazing if you could like this channel, subscribe to it, maybe share this video, and leave a comment with what your biggest insight or your biggest takeaway was out of the talk that we had today. I would very much appreciate it if you would do that. And I can also imagine that you would like to know, where can we find Jenny? How can I contact Jenny? So where can people find you, Jenny?
Yeah, the easiest way is my website, so jennycalcoen.com, and I'm sure there will be a link somewhere, or reach out to me via LinkedIn. I'm also available on LinkedIn, and reach out if we don't know each other, let's connect.
I love that. Indeed, there will be links to connect with Jenny in the description of this video, probably below it, but somewhere around it. So look for it. My links are always in there as well. Everybody that wants to have a coffee chat with me to explore what working together could look like is more than welcome to book something. And if you want to reach out to Jenny because you feel like I'm resonating with her energy and her story, then reach out through the website, through LinkedIn. You don't have to be alone. You don't have to walk alone, and you don't have to navigate your inner earthquake alone if you do not want to.
Yeah,
I think
that's
that
right.
that's a beautiful note to end our wonderful talk
Mhm.
with today.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for this conversation. It was really lovely. Yeah, thank
Yes,
you.
you too. I loved it. And thank
Mhm.
you, viewers, watchers, listeners out there, for your support for this channel, for always showing up and listening to these talks, and for your participation with sharing and commenting. I love you. I wish you an amazing rest of your day for today, and I would love to talk to you again next week with another beautiful guest. For right now, have an amazing rest of your day.